Hello and welcome to the next episode of DDR, a podcast all about your favorite Drow, Drizzt Do'Urden. My name is Justin, and in this episode we'll be diving deep into Chapter 17 of Homeland, titled... Jeffrey, what is the title?
Of Chapter 17? It's
of
Homecoming.
Chapter 17.
It's Homecoming.
Homecoming. For some reason I missed that. We'll be discussing all of our favorite plot points, characters, and more.
My name is Jeffrey. You can always join along as we strap on our adventurer's pack and dive a little deeper into the chapter. We look at how it relates to Dungeons & Dragons, the 5e tabletop game.
Following along with the show is easy. Just grab a copy of the book, read the next chapter, and tune in every week. But remember, we want to hear your thoughts too. You can share those with us at drizzdoneright@gmail.com.
Or, better yet, help us bring the pages to life by going into the episode description for the podcast that you're listening to right now. If you look near the button that you clicked on to play this very episode, you're actually going to be able to scroll down and use the Discord invitation link to join the Dim Light Squad.
The Dim Light Squad.
For those of you who don't know, that's our Discord members for the Drizzt Done Right Discord channel.
Mm-hmm.
They really help class up to join a little bit and keep the conversation going. If you want to join up to do a one-off campaign for the D&D game that we've been talking about and then put together after the finished book in Season 1, then you're going to have to show up in the Discord because that's where all the news is going to come from. That's where we're going to put up all the trumpeted announcements and heralding. And when we get down to it, that's where we're going to draw all of our combatants from, too. So remember, the invitation is in the episode description link. Go right now. Bring a friend. Bring your family. Heck, you know what? Maybe bring the homeless guy from down the street and let him use your Wi-Fi. We'll all get together on the experience and then just take this journey together.
It's got to be so much fun.
And if your parents object, just remember I did not tell you to actually use the homeless guy. Maybe just invite him for coffee and use Burger King's Wi-Fi.
All right. Awesome. Well, here we are, Jeffrey, episode 17. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Just
good.
Kind of been kicking around. We just went to Elizabeth had a concert piece today that did Peter and the Wolf.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it was neat. She does the orchestra that she volunteers at. She's a part of. And so go down and see the shows that they put on. It's a way for me to get a little bit of classical music in my life that I normally wouldn't get. And it's something that once you get an experience of, you really appreciate differently, I think.
Yeah.
Because for me, absolutely. I really enjoy watching you if you are good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're blowing glass at the local mall, I could sit and watch you make, the stems and the pedals and all that stuff. It's so cool to me.
Yeah.
Same idea watching people who play instruments for a living. It's really neat. You get a appreciation for the time they put into it. So I got to watch Peter and the Wolf. They had the local school had ballet dancers. They came in and
cool.
Did a little routine. They danced out the story as the orchestra played. And then they also had an orator. Kind of came out like the Barnum and Bailey speaking engagement guy. Kind of told the story, And then Peter came from the side and told the bird to fly at the wolf, but not too close. And then it works out. So he was kind of like the MC of the event, and it's enjoyable. I highly recommend to all of our listeners, if you have local community theater, local community music, go support it. Check it out. It's fun to be a part of. It's fun to just experience, I think.
No, absolutely. I mean, it might not be. What's Broadway, but it's people from your community and they're having fun doing it. And we went to see, what was it? My Fair Lady on, just the local, theater a couple years back. And because our friend was in it and she did really well. The whole cast did really well. It was really fun to watch, but, Jeffrey, I gotta say this weekend that we're filming, crazy busy for me. Today was today was so much fun, but it was so busy.
Like a double espresso kind of day.
Absolutely. If my espresso machine wasn't broken. But that's a different story. No, today was my son's
Caffeine
first soccer
reinforcements
game.
on the way.
Today was my son's first soccer game.
Awesome.
So much fun. He's 5 years old, for those that don't know. So watching 5-year-olds, 5 and 6-year-olds run around on a field and try to kick a ball, and so much fun. It's so entertaining. You have the one kid that's just kind of like standing there, just like looking around, like, and just like not moving. You have the other kid that's like lying down on the field, like, just chasing butterflies, and then they just fall over.
I feel like I was one of those kids. I played soccer at a very young age and then never continued. One of those things I probably should have. But I always feel like it's at that age, it's fun to watch them just like, it's like mass run back and forth.
Yeah.
Because there's not as, I don't mean to say they have no skill. That's the wrong way to put it. But there's not as much focus on the technique as far as, when they progress further. So this, at those younger ages, to me, it's always more about like, the energy, just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I mean, there are definitely some kids that have the technique down. They have the skill. And it's just kind of like the two kids that are most skilled on both teams, they're just going back and forth at each other. All the other kids are just standing there like, But I was really proud of my son today. He got his foot on the ball a few times, and just he's a little bit of a tank, so he knocked it down the field and then just stood there and watched it. I'm like, run, boy, go! But so that was really entertaining. And then after that, oh man, we stopped at Texas Roadhouse for lunch.
It's a solid establishment. Yep.
Oh man, I got a half rack of ribs. I couldn't even finish it.
Nice.
The ribs are pretty good. And then after
we
went
fill up on their biscuits. That biscuit and butter they have is
I had 2 of them. I had 2 of them, and I'm like, I have to stop. We got some fried pickles too.
Oh yeah, they're good. See, Elizabeth hates pickles, so I rarely ever get them. Yeah, because I love that vinegary crunch. But
absolutely. Yeah, the kids wouldn't touch them, and I'm just like, that's perfectly fine.
Like, oh yeah, no, you guys would hate these.
And then after all that, we went and saw the new Super Mario movie. And I mean, I feel like I spent most of the movie. I mean, great movie. Don't want to like,
excellent.
It was a lot of fun. The Easter eggs were awesome. But I feel like I spent most of the movie just watching my son, because it was his first movie.
Yeah.
And it's Mario. Like, it's Mario.
Which is everything to him. He's a big fan, right?
Everything, just like
Beautiful.
He loves Mario. And so it was just so much fun. We took my daughter too, and she loved it as well. And but just watching Christopher react to I mean Jeffrey, my son. Mm-hmm. When he laughs, he's a loud boy. Just a little. It's a very, belly loud laugh.
Absolutely.
And his laughter filled up that room.
Oh, that's excellent.
Very much so. So it was a lot of fun.
Now, if you were guest starring on Robert and Robin's radio, what out of a 1 to 5 rating would you give the Mario movie?
You know what?
5 being a fantastic, epic, watch it twice a year kind of movie.
It's tough because the storyline and everything, it was entertaining, but it wasn't really written for adults.
Right.
Other than the fact that they did write in all kinds of Easter eggs. The music was phenomenal.
Nice.
It was amazing. They tied in all kinds of music from all sorts of video games. Like, if a character came in, you bet they played the theme song from their video game,
Oh, that's cool.
It was really awesome. That aspect I loved. The story was okay. It was all right. So I would probably have to give it a 4 out of 5.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Like, I had to laugh because Elizabeth had told me, she's like, well, I hear it doesn't have a great, plot, I guess, or storyline, like you're saying. I was like, well, I mean, really, what are you looking for? I just want to go see something that would have the eye candy, the appeal, and, just kind of enjoy it.
Oh, and it has that.
Nice.
It totally has that.
You know, I've heard
So
like people were saying like Wreck-It Ralph was an example of what it could have been,
right.
but
Yeah.
didn't execute it in a similar way. I would definitely check it out. As you know, if I don't catch it in the theater, I will see it when it comes out. That's very nice.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're about 10 minutes in already. We should probably start our show here, Jeffrey.
Let's launch it and kick this baby off. We're actually going to have to do an insight check as we move forward now into part 4. Do you know the name of our insight check this week?
That was kind of hard to miss because the insight check was Guinevere, and of course, that stands out to me.
Me as well, and probably more than a few of our listeners. But this week, our insight check is a little bit smaller. So instead of giving a summarization, I just kind of wanted to give a dramatic reading, right? Because it seems almost like it's a haiku of sorts.
Awesome. Yeah, it is.
So we have part 4, Guinevere. What eyes are these that see? The pain I know in my innermost soul? What eyes are these that see? The twisted strides of my kindred, led on in the wake of toys unbridled, arrow, bolt, and sword tip? Yours, yours. Straight run and muscled spring, soft on padded paws, sheathed claws, weapons rested for their need, stained not by frivolous blood or murderous deceit. Face to face, my mirror, reflection in a still pool by light. Would that I might keep that image upon this face mine own. Would that I might keep that heart within my breast untainted. Hold tight to the proud honor of your spirit, mighty Guinevere. Hold tight to my side, my dearest friend. Had to let that dramatic pause go just a little bit.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
That.
I wanted to say something, and I was just like, no, gotta wait.
Right, we don't have like a live meter or anything that shows me where the the ups and downs and all the little pulse goes. But I just when that ended, it was like for me one of those harmonic moments where it's like a little drop of water.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's one of the things like you were saying, like going to see like listening to classical music and everything. It really bugs me when audiences clap too early after a piece.
You are not
done.
alone. That is a common complaint in the audiences, and especially from the people who perform, that I hear, because I am one of those people who didn't know when you should applaud, but I have been taught very well where and when to applaud. So now I'm the guy who waits for the third person to clap, and then I jump in.
Right, because it's just like the silence afterwards is almost just as important, just as impactful.
Yeah.
As the entirety of the piece, and it's almost like a moment of reflection, and so I know we don't really have any summary for this or anything, any kind of thing that we wanted to talk about, but I just have to say that what part was it that really got me? The face to face, my mirror.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah.
The idea of, they're face to face, like the imagery going on there, the idea of Drizzt looking into the eyes of Guinevere and seeing his own reflection. I don't know if you do that with your cats, but I do that with my dogs all the time, where I'm just like looking at my dogs and I'm just like, there's me in my dog's eyes. And they're looking at you as just like, hey, you're my master. You're awesome. You're just like, I look up to you. I love you.
Yeah.
Right. That connection that you make.
It's neat because from a psychology standpoint, we have the tendency to imprint our emotions on animals and think that they have feelings in similar ways. Not to say that they don't show affection or anything like that in any kind of way, but saying that, like, I love that moment where it's not that he's seeing, him as a cat-like individual. He doesn't think he's a Khajiit or anything. He's seeing his morals, his ethos, his essence, a little piece of his soul, his spirit, they just reflected. inside of there. And that's something that I definitely do, because I love to look for like that spark of life, you know, when you see that recognition of something looking at you and you looking at something, and knowing that like you're both figuring it out, you know, like, I don't know, it's seeing one another and, acknowledging the moment. It's always kind of cool. And it's very neat the way he used the term, like, mirror, because it's like a reflection, or a reflecting pool, where you get that image, as he moves his head, Guinevere's head would move, kind of deal.
Right. Yeah. So that was just a part that stood out to me. But yeah. So I don't know if you have anything else that you want to say about the insight check. If not, we can jump right into the Drizzt.
I think we got to take him right on down the road. Let him get the Drizzt of it.
All right, the part of the show where we take a look at this week's chapter and we give you the Drizzt of it. We call it the Drizzt.
See, it's a play on words, but it's the same words. I
mean, we're at chapter 17, episode 17 here, but the Drizzt, the gist.
Yep. See what we did there? It's like a dad joke with the depth and complexity required to get that from all angles. Genius.
Genius.
Like those two Guinness guys. Brilliant. Yes, brilliant. Not to toot our own horns, but I mean, I think that was just sheer brilliance. Beep, beep.
All right, we enter chapter 17 with Drizzt returning home. Drizzt feels more out of place at House Do'Urden now, more than ever. Perhaps it's the fact that he's been away for more than a decade, and he would be. Did he go to the academy when he was 20 years old?
I believe so, yes. Left at 20, like would make him 30 now.
So he's close to 30. Okay, so like a third of his life away from home, and now he's back. So, I mean, it could be the fact that he's been away for so long. It could be the fact that now he knows that the majority of his immediate family would not bat an eye before feeding Drizzt to the Driders.
As long as Matron Malice was okay with it, because that's the only thing that stops them from getting, from really caring.
Right, but knowing that Mom is okay with that, it's just like,
oh yeah, no, Mom's on board with it. So
like,
once you find that out, it's like, shucks.
So whatever the reason, he now understood that if he valued his life, he had better show complete obedience to the matron mother, not mother, matron mother, as well as his sisters. So in this chapter, Briza and Vierna, toward the beginning here, they both welcome Drizzt home, and Drizzt couldn't tell if there was sarcasm in their greeting or not. Maya eventually asks Drizzt why he was unable to just enjoy the pleasures of the graduation ceremony, adding on that he might have kind of like risked his entire house. He might have put shame on the entire house. Briza, rather, Drizzt. Combining
That's a spin-off story that they're not doing.
What if Briza chimes in saying, you might have placed Matron Malice in Lolth's disfavor, to which Drizzt thinks, and luckily he keeps it in his head, the best thing I could have ever done, I could ever do for her. Just like, man, if he would have said that out loud, he would be a Drider right now.
I do love the point though that they point out, like, sometimes Briza might read minds, so I better just throw that out real fast.
Right, that's right. They do.
Like, I love that.
He starts to think that, and he's just like,
it's in my head. I got all funny replies, and it's like, no, thank you.
It is such a good thing that people do not have the ability to read minds, Jeffrey, because as soon as you try to stop thinking about something, it makes it all the harder to.
Well, it's like the old joke, right? Of try not to think of an elephant. Oh, you're thinking of an elephant,
and it's like,
right? It's
elephant.
Like, son of a gun.
I can't get it out of my head now.
Yep. And if you think that people who walk around nowadays and they're like, hashtag no filter, like, You have no idea the inner monologue that runs through people. Just, like people with ADHD, where it's a yellow bird, kite, scream,
constantly going.
tree over there, squirrel's got a nut, squirrel's running over there, hawk, like, could not handle it. It would be too much.
And people that would read minds would just eventually learn, like, don't read his mind. So, after this whole conversation, Drizzt starts walking away. Breeza shouts out, "All praises to the Spider Queen," to which Drizzt kind of mumbles back to her, "As it should be," trying to make sure that no one but Breeza hears. Like, he doesn't want to... He especially doesn't want Zaknafein to hear.
I'm not even sure if he wanted Breeza to hear. Like, that's how I felt when I read it, is he was just kind of like, yeah.
Oh, really?
It should be. Just, you know what I mean? Going through the motions of saying it. Yeah.
Okay, no. That's... Okay, no,
I might be wrong, but that's just kind of how I took it, where it was just like, yeah, right, as it should be.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Just kind of like a sarcastic remark afterwards. But, of course, Zaknafein was following closely behind...
Creeping.
And he heard this entire exchange, and upon hearing those words leave his son's mouth, he felt finally beaten by Drow society. This whole time he was clinging on to this hope that Drizzt may emerge from the academy unchanged from this brainwashing that he knows goes on there. Hoping that Drizzt would hold on to his prior values and beliefs. But Zach eventually just loses that, it seems like. So Zach reflects on his past decisions. Just, what have I done? Knowing that he could have prevented a life of torment and hate for this poor Drow. If Zach was only just brave enough to end Drizzt's life 10 years ago. Zaknafein saw... Sorry?
No, it's just like such a crazy thought. You know what I mean? The way he sees that. Like, ooh.
Right. So Zaknafein saw this lapse as a mark of his own cowardice and found solace hiding his face in his hands. Drizzt spent the next day resting and avoiding his immediate family, most of all his former mentor, whom he used to hold in high regard. On the second day, Breeza showed up early to let him know that his presence was required by Matron Malice. She scolded him for his unease in the chapel. Perhaps not understanding that the same reason she saw such praise in the glories of Lolth, he saw only further failings. He lowered his gaze to avoid needless confrontation and just kind of like tried to just...
Right, might be like the first time in his life we've ever seen him pull that off, right? Because normally he just has that like that smart aleck response. Not like he's pushing boundaries on purpose per se, but he just usually has that childish innocence about him. And here he's kind of like, oh right, let me just avoid it.
So like either it's either like he's finally learned, like, this is my place, or it's just easier if I go along with all this, Right, like, what internal struggle, how's he landing on that? Yeah. So he was surprised to find his entire family was in attendance at this meeting. Wondering why Vierna and Dinan had been pulled back from the academy, Matron Malice explained that there were whispers of war in the wind. The family was skeptical, but Matron Malice gave credence to rumors. Dinan reasoned that there had been too many members in high places and too many troops that were well trained and battle ready for any but a very small handful of houses to be able to even contemplate attacking House Do'Urden. This made sense because even though they were 9th house, Matron Malice had taken careful steps to make sure that the true power and might of House Do'Urden was always concealed and a little underestimated. So she suspected it must be one of the great houses, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, and it brought up to me they'll mention the greatest house later on, but it brought up to me the conversation she had with Matron Bainray, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
Matron Bainray was like, "Hey, by the way, what do you got? Like 250 soldiers?" And she's like,
Right.
175. You know, my numbers are wrong,
Right.
but she's always working that angle where she's like, you know what? They're not actually all
Yep.
that fit for battle either. Like they probably got canker sores on their feet, and you know what? We've had like goblinitis has been running through the barracks. So I mean, really, I mean, we got like 7 or 8 really good soldiers. So she was always trying to
Just downplaying it. Yeah. Really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't even thinking about that whole conversation. But yeah, that totally relates here. But yeah, the idea of a house ahead of them knocking them out because they're afraid of, like, they're threatened by them.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting just because it's like, no, lower houses always take out the upper houses to move up. But
Well, and that shows like the complexity of the ruling council, if you want to put it that way. Like, so you always
Okay.
look at it as ascending the ladder, going from 64th to first. But the security council, the ruling council, is the top 8 houses, and Matron Malice has her eye on becoming one of those top 8 houses and having a
Right.
seat at the table. That's why she went to speak with Matron Bainray early on. And like those houses, they're not going anywhere. Like, what is 3
Right.
going to take out 1? Maybe, and eventually they're going to try to work that as a long game, you know, to try to get themselves in position. But what they're really going to do is make sure nobody comes up and takes their place. And that
Yeah.
really shows the
Right.
foresight of Matron Malice, because in the middle of this tempest, she's able to understand her place among the hierarchy and how other people are looking at her. And it, you know, when we have seen other matron mothers, it really doesn't display the same ability to look both ways. They only seem like hyper focused on theirs. You know, when you see Matron Sinefe, she's looking at House Do'Urden. She's just seeing a threat coming
Yep.
at her. She's not looking backwards. She's just looking straight that one way. Where Matron Malice has her head on a swivel and she's, you know, just
Yep.
looking every which way.
Yep. That's really interesting. That's really cool. All right. House Do'Urden must be prepared for the worst. But Drizzt found himself wondering if maybe there was a diplomatic solution to this instead of war. Perhaps they could find the offended house and expose them. Let the council deal with them. To which Briza scoffed, "Conspiracy without action is no crime." And Drizzt comes back, "Well, what about reason? If House Do'Urden was stronger, then why not just reshuffle the houses to their appropriate rankings?" And I mean,
That's such an innocent comment when you think about it, because it's like, wait, if
And-
we're just supposed to be 5th, make us 5th.
yeah, I mean, that comment just made Matron Malice go atomic on Drizzt. Just
She might have high blood pressure.
having a son like this has got to give you high blood pressure.
If her hair wasn't already shock white, she would be getting grays.
So she grabbed Drizzt, and rage just filled every ounce of her features. This was not the time to fear, she growled. Zactophanes had to cover the amusement that suddenly made its way to his face. Matron Malice continued, "This is the time to dream. We are House Do'Urden, de Erman na Ashes Baronin, of power beyond the understanding of the great houses. We are the unknown entity of this war. We hold every advantage. 9th house? Soon there will only be 7 ahead of us." So it's ironic that Matron Malice is openly plotting the demise of some anonymous house that she is upset at for targeting them. I mean, so it's okay if they do it, but not for anyone else too?
Yeah.
Just
And I mean, we saw that the same way when we talked earlier about the House Hanet looking back at it, or no, not Hanet, Devere. Alton was looking back in his memories, and he's like, "Wow, we slaughtered that house. House Do'Urden must pay because they slaughtered my house." It's like,
right.
huh? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
But that's what Lolth likes, I guess.
You got to stay in her
So-
favor. That much is clear because the interplanetary
Yep.
demons. Ooh.
Don't want to get mixed up with them. So Briza suddenly realized the oncoming conflict would put Drizzt in danger. He was going to be on patrols around the city, and that would make him sort of more susceptible, more open
Vulnerable
to
for sure,
assassination.
yeah.
Vulnerable, that's the word I was looking for. Susceptible. Vulnerable to assassination. Matron Malice had a grin that you could feel through the pages as she explained that any house looking to ambush a Do'Urden like that would find not one, but 2 Do'Urdens lying in wait. She had used her guile to put Dinan in charge of the patrols. His eyes lit up when he heard about this opportunity, but Matron Malice was quick to smother the ambition that she saw as she ordered him not to attack without her consent. But it did sound like she was at least like open to the idea. But, you know,
I think it's very much it's her terms. You know, it's very very comparable when you think of Dinan and Massage, where they're both looking for that ability to, like, they both killed their brother.
Right.
Like, I didn't realize that, but they both killed their brother. You know, they both did it without their mother's approval. Their mother did not care in either case. And
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of comparable spots there. But you know, when Matron Cinefe was like, Alton, look, you will not do anything, or Massage, you will not do anything until I tell you to. And then same thing with Major Malice. She's like, you know, she sees Dean and he's like, oh, well, then we get to be the assassins.
Right.
And she's like,
he's like, calm down.
no, you will not. Like, look at me right here. Follow. No.
Yeah. So Drizzt did not miss the references to Nalfane, the brother that he never knew. But this was to be a recon mission. Drizzt watched Zack leave, conflicted about whether or not he should confront him, but was quickly reminded of his presence before Matron Malice, who warned him very explicitly that he will not fail her this time because he would not enjoy his life so much as a Drider.
Oh, just jabbing that wound one more time. Like, by the way, remember, Drider.
Yep.
Me,
oh, right.
you, Drider Pit.
Don't make me get out the Drider. You know, like,
it's like,
okay.
What are we going to do today? You want to be a Drider? Okay. Okay.
So, cut scene, and we're going to slide on over to lightning blasting across still black waters of an underground lake and scorching some approaching water trolls.
Yes.
We find ourselves engaged in a battle with sounds echoing everywhere. These water trolls, also referred to as scrags, were a lot to handle one-on-one for most Drow, but Drizzt was not most Drow. The first scrag came at Drizzt, oblivious to the danger, and found itself delimbed in quick fashion. Most creatures delimbed, and they're done.
Yep.
Drizzt pressed the attack quickly, knowing that trolls will regenerate unless you use fire. So it's best to quickly kill or incapacitate them as quickly as possible. So we had a second scrag creeping up behind Drizzt, but I mean, he knew it was there. He left his focus on the scrag in front of him and allowed who? Gwenevere to spring the trap. Oh man, Jeffrey, that was so awesome. It was just like he drops it now, and just this Black Panther just launches out and just tears the troll apart.
How skilled of a warrior do you have to be that not only are you fighting an enemy that most people would blanch at, right? They're like, oh no, that guy. Not only are you doing that, you are setting up Hollywood-style fight scenes for your sidekick, where it's like, you know what? I know he's behind me, but I will not spin around and stab him. No, 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 no. I know Guinevere's got my back. And so what I'm going to do is put myself out there as bait and allow her to close the distance and spring this trap. It's like, man, it's just such a level of trust, the bond he has with Guinevere already. And, I mean, she belongs to Massage.
Right. And like we see that then right after this attack where, I mean, I guess Massage kind of sees and does not approve of this relationship that is building between his panther and this drow from House Do'Urden, this lesser house.
If he was a sandwich, he'd be peanut butter and jelly, right? He's a little bit jealous of what's going on with his panther and Drizzt. That's kind of how I see it.
Yep. No, absolutely.
He sees them over there frolicking around, having a great time, and there he is in his own curmudgeon-y little world, like, wish I had a friend. Wait a minute, that's my friend over there being friends with that jerk. And it's just stewing in his own toxicity.
Yeah, and so after Massage sees Guinevere rip this troll apart, he kind of just like, as if he's punishing Gwen, calls her back and banishes her back to the astral plane.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh man, like, no, like, you can use her more, like, come on. And he's just like, no, if I don't get to play with her, no one does.
Absolutely. And that kind of encapsulates how I feel with Massage at the moment. Like, if we didn't know he's the kind of guy who would convince you to pour acid on your own face, I would say that you got to keep an eye on Massage because he might have some problems. However, we know he does.
Oh man. So yeah, Massage banished Gwen back to the plane and watched with admiration and more than a touch of fear as Drizzt flowed into and through another troll with ease. Every day growing more formidable, it wouldn't be long until... Jeffrey, do we read our scripts here, or is this all...
No. Sometimes when you see a word, you fumble it over anyway, even though you know what that word is. I've done that so many times. Like earlier on, I had one, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. You just got to truck right on through that. It is formidable.
Formidable. So every day growing more formidable, it wouldn't be long until Massage would be able to defeat Drizzt.
Unable.
Dinan quickly followed the guard as the patrol caught up. Torches brought to burn these downed scrags before they could regenerate, because apparently, even if they're sliced into tiny pieces, these trolls can make their way back together.
So if you fed a troll through a wood chipper, you could have a troll slushy, and eventually, with enough time, that troll would put itself either back together. It would have to be back together, right? It wouldn't have hundreds of trolls like Gremlins after that, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. I think it would just be the singular troll, I think.
If you fed a troll through a mandolin and had very thin slices of that troll, how would that grow back together?
Right. Well, I guess that's what they're able to do at a certain point.
That's creepy.
So, but we do learn that fire, like burning them, prevents them from going back together. So, as the fires extinguish, Drizzt found himself in a bit of a general feeling of discomfort. Sure, his days were filled fighting the horrors of the Underdark, monsters killed of necessity. But soon his scimitars would find drow flesh.
Can I pause you there? I really like how you said that, and it's kind of funny to me because I have read that part of the book several times, and until I heard you say it, I always thought that he felt fine killing monsters because they killed of necessity. That the monsters would kill because it was necessary to kill. But when you just said the monsters killed of necessity, I just realized that
No,
what the author means is that Drizzt is looking at these monsters and their death as like, you know what, it's a necessary evil. And now he's
it has to
afraid
happen.
of the time when it's going to be drow flesh where it doesn't have to happen. I was like, oh, wow, that just hit me a little different right there.
Yeah, well, it's wild because these crazy monsters lurking outside of the corridors of Menzer Baronzon, and if they made their way in, they could really wreak havoc. But so it's necessary. It's needed for patrols to go around and limit the populations of these monsters. But then to take that same scimitar and turn it on fellow drow, like
Literally the drow you're protecting by taking those
right,
lives. Yeah.
right. Like, why not just let the monsters come in?
Right. Well, because what happens then is Lolth gets very mad.
Lolth doesn't like
takes your
that.
favor away, and then House Do'Urden comes through your window and destroys everything. That's what happened to House Devere. They allowed the Svirfneblin to kill one of the drow.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it made a lot of sense to Drizzt that killing monsters was fine, but still, just killing drow still did not make that much sense to him.
He's the only drow. Well, besides maybe no, he's the only drow who really doesn't want to kill other drow. Even Zaknafein has no problem killing other drow as long as they're priestesses of Lolth. I was going to say true. Except for Zak, but Zak he takes some pleasure in whooping on those the higher clergy members of Lolth.
That's true. All right, and then toward the end of the chapter here, we're going to cut scene over to Zaknafein. And what is Zaknafein doing again?
He's sitting at a cafe in Paris drinking a small cup of espresso.
No, he is. Once again, I feel like this is the 17th time that he's doing this. Looking over Menzer Baronzon. I feel like it's happened quite a bit. Not saying that like it's a bad thing, because the reflections that Zaknafein has are always just really interesting. So
they're usually very poignant, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this time especially, for me at least. So he's conflicted inside yet again. He wondered whether he'd rather see Drizzt return home safely after one of these patrols or receive news that Drizzt had fallen in battle. So he was... Zak has been confined to House Do'Urden, to the house. Matron Malice was watching him closely. They had... Zak and Malice, their relationship has been kind of rather complicated, really. I mean, they'd often been lovers, but they really shared little else. And in this moment, he starts to reflect back to the fights that him and Malice have had over specifically Vierna, which I thought was interesting. But she was a female. So that means that her fate was sealed. She was gonna go on to be a cleric of Lolth, like she's a female, like in a
high priestess.
Matriarch.
Here I come. No shot.
Like she's in a matriarchal society. Her path is laid in stone. But now, perhaps Malice is fearing that Zak would have more luck with Drizzt, because he's just a lowly male drow. So he had no idea if he even got through to Drizzt at all. I mean, after the beginning of this chapter, it sort of seemed like maybe he thought he didn't get through to Drizzt, really, but...
And he sees like maybe glimpses, but I guess he's wondering at that point, like, is that glimpse real, or am I just, am I imagining it? It's kind of how I feel like he's looking at it.
Right. So Zaknafein looked back out over the city with what seemed almost like a sigh as he resumed his silent watch, waiting for the return or news of the demise of Drizzt. So
that is such a melancholy kind of moment there. Like, I mean, Zak is very emo. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's just sitting there like, man, I hope he returns. Actually, maybe it'd be better if he didn't. It's like, ooh, Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know he's pressed the battle before. He's come at Drizzt with, well, enough power to crack a skull. Like I think it literally said the one time. And he's drawn blood. And
Right.
even in this moment, though, he's like, maybe it'd still be more of a mercy if one of those water trolls just drowned him. Or, maybe
Yeah.
the hookar just gobbled him up.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that's going to do it for the Drizzt. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the dim light reel.
Hopefully you guys are getting rid of them segments and little body blows that we're throwing, jumping from the Drizzt straight to the dim light reel. This is where we cast darkness on our favorite parts of the chapter and we dim light all of our favorite characters, events, descriptions, and more. Not all at once, just a little bit from each chapter, one from each of us. Like to keep it fresh. For me, my dim light is going to be Zach lamenting not having killed Drizzt.
Okay.
That just sounds funny to say, right? He's lamenting not having killed Drizzt. So my dim light of the chapter has to be the fact that Zach Nafane spent so much of it lamenting the fact that he did not kill Drizzt. I'm always kind of enamored with the psychology of the Drow, and I think that's what drew me to them from the very first time I read about them. The rumors are that Drow are evil. They're vicious. They're intelligent, deadly. And it turns out it's all true. It's probably an understatement, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This whole book, we've watched Drow plot, scheme, and kill with religious fervor. They don't just go through the motions, they buy in with the whole zealous behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Then, in the middle of it all, you have Zach Nafane, this wonderfully talented killing machine who stops and wonders whether or not the edge of the blade would be more merciful than being raised Drow. What? What a condemnation. Like, what a mind twist. What a way to see the world that you live in. Mm-hmm. When Zach first meets Drizzt, Breeza yells out, all praises to the Spider Queen, and his eyes are lowered, and Zach notices that the customary smile is gone. He pauses and tries to measure the toll that a decade at the Academy had taken on this young fighter that stands before him. What of his innocence? What of his innocence that made him different from the rest of Menzo Berenson? Zach leans against the side passage, kind of staying out of view like you had mentioned earlier. And he didn't hear much, but he heard these little bits and clips, and he hears Drizzt respond to Breeze's heartfelt honoring of Lolth. The hail to the Spider Queen. And it seems to Zach Nafane, like he's almost bemoaning to himself, like, what have I done? Truly, when I look upon the Drow warrior that was my most treasured, I shame for my cowardice. What has Drizzt lost that I might have saved? How do you save any of that by murdering him?
Right.
Right? Just so foreign of a concept to me.
Yeah. Yep.
In this moment that seems straight out of a cinema, right? He pulls out this sword and he runs his finger right along the edge of this razor-sharp edge. And he ponders, a finer blade you would have been had you tasted the blood of Drizzt Do'Urden. To deny this world, our world, another soul for its taking. To free that one from the unending torments of life.
Man, that's just so dark.
It's darker than the Underdark. Like, you had to put shades on to read that in the Underdark. And just for me,
a finer blade you would have been to tasted the blood of Drizzt Do'Urden. Like, I was like, oh my gosh.
I mean, for me, it's a really big insight. It looks into Zach specifically. He says the unending torments of life. Because Zach feels trapped. He can't leave Menzo Berenson. He can't leave House Do'Urden. And in fact, in this chapter at the end, he literally can't even leave the house at the end because of Matron Malice.
Right.
He has the weight of duty on his shoulders, the weight of responsibility, the weight of expectations. And it's literally crushing him. You're laughing because I said duty, aren't you? I'm laughing because I said duty. Hopefully some of our listeners are laughing because I said duty. All this weight is crushing him. He lives and thrives in this world that he doesn't really feel a part of. I mean, in fact, it's a world he feels enslaved in. One from which there is no escape except for death. Which he sees as a mercy.
Yeah.
And then he goes on and he says, but I am a coward. I have failed in the one act that could have brought meaning to my pitiful existence. The second boy of House Do'Urden lives. it would appear. But Drizzt Do'Urden, my two hands, is long dead. Yet this pretender lives, a Drow warrior. And in that moment, he circles back to when Drizzt said that he was going to make Zack proud at the academy. And Zack fought harder in their training sessions, screaming at him that he was a pretender. The person he sees before him has changed from the person he once was. And Zack Nafane blames himself for not killing the child before he lost his innocence. When he says it would bring meaning to his pitiful existence, I mean, I can almost hear him talking about the dying screams of the children, and it's almost as if he feels like if he's going to hear those screams, well, you know what, then he should at least have been brave enough to add Drizzt to those screams and save him the torment of ending up just like his father, trapped in this cycle of killing.
Interesting.
Like, what?
Yeah.
That's so heavy of a moment when you really kind of like dive into what he sees. Because again, you see from the outside that Zack is this very stoic individual, and then to find this kind of a tempest of emotion inside of him is really something.
Yeah.
So then Zack drops his weapons, and he actually hides his face in his hands. And I love this. It wrote that it's the only shield he had ever found. Like, he's a weapons master who has spent his entire 400 years or so training with weapons, fighting other people, other Drow, training other Drow. And his hands that he hides his face in are the only shield he's ever found. That line hit me because Zack is fierce, brave, courageous, yet in this moment, we're let in further behind the curtain than ever before, and we see his emotions just laid bare before us. We see him struggling with his insecurity, with anxiety, with depression, and the stoic man that he is from the outside is just that broiling storm inside. And I think it's a beautiful moment. The way that R.A. Salvatore, it just examines the juxtaposition in between or inside of Zack between the warrior that he is as well as the ethos that he has as a warrior. Beautiful. During the meeting with Matron Malice, Zack Nafane suddenly finds just this tiny glimmer of hope. And you can almost feel that smile spreading over his face like sunlight on the skin, except not, because as a Drow, that would be really uncomfortable. That smile breaks out, and he has to hide it because he sees the innocence in Drizzt that he feared was torn out by the Academy, as Drizzt is trying to find some kind of a way around this confrontation, completely naive to the fact that Matron Malice is never going to look to avoid this confrontation. Never. In fact, Zack knows that Matron Malice desires this conflict. It gives her the ability to justify attacking another house and continuing to ascend her own lofty ambitions. And when you really take a moment to think about that, it does really speak, again, into the Drow and their hierarchy, because you could try to find a way to settle conflict, right? You could try to find a way to say, hey, it's not our fault. We didn't do it. We shouldn't be attacked. But Matron Malice is welcoming this because now she can attack one of the higher houses and secure her seat on the ruling council without any fault or shame to her own house.
Yeah, that's true.
She has all of the defense she needs to wage war and not have to face Drow justice, as we saw earlier. Matron Bayenray will not be able to show up at her front door and say, hey, you have committed a crime, because she's like, what do you mean? Like, look, this house came at us. We just defended ourselves and obliterated them. You know what I mean? And so she'll be able to just walk through the threshold of this security council that she's just been trying to find an angle in at. So she's not upset that the house is being targeted. She revels in this moment.
That's true, especially since it's a house in front of them, because, then she's on the ruling council.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And for me, like, I love this part of the chapter because in my head, it plays out just kind of like a movie scene, right? We're watching Drizzt continue to underestimate the brutality of the Drow society. We're watching the center of the scene unfold between Matron Malice and Drizzt. Small roles are peppered in as, Breeza adds quips over here and Denan makes some observations over there. But in the background and to the side, suddenly Zack Nafane stands out like a sore thumb because he's not like anyone else in the room. He's found hope. He's found a reason to smile. And here you get another one of the juxtapositions of Drizzt and Zack Nafane, because as Zack Nafane walks out with a bounce in his step at the thought of Drizzt having survived, Drizzt is filled with this contempt as he watches Zack bounce away, thinking that he's smiling at the thought of killing clerics. I was like, That is a really neat way to see one scene from two different points of view. Because Zach, the Drizzt is like, "Why? Well, Zach looks happy, of course, because he's gonna go kill more
Right.
Drow. Like, way to go, Zach,
Right.
you Drow murderer."
Yeah.
The fact that we end the chapter with Zach Nefane, it's fitting, and he finds himself literally trapped in a prison of sorts by Matron Malice. She watches him like a hawk, and he dares not leave the house. He wonders if he'll ever get an answer about Drizzt, like a definitive answer instead of just speculation. He thinks back over his other fights with Matron Malice and wonders if Malice is afraid he'd have better luck with Drizzt. And that's kind of funny to me because it's like, who sits back and thinks about all their old arguments? He's like he's looking fondly back on that time that Matron Malice threw a cup at the wall because he was like, you know what, maybe Vierna shouldn't be a high priestess of Lolth. And, that time he swung a picture frame at her because she was over there. Like, he's just fondly remembering the fights over trying to raise Vierna in a different way.
Right. Yeah. Which I'll get to.
Absolutely. I just found that really neat that what he's doing is fondly remembering the conflicts of all of it. And the scene ends like he's just, like I said before, just kind of sitting by a table, just sipping his coffee on the side, sighing as he looks out at the sunset. Well, would have to be sun below it, maybe a moonrise. Perpetually wondering day after day if Drizzt is going to make it back safely from his patrol, while still just kind of hoping that he would receive a touch of mercy at the end of a hook or claw out there, instead of the unending assault that awaited him back home.
Yeah. Oh, man. Jeffrey, this is a situation of me not looking over your part of the script because my dim light is pretty similar to yours.
As they all should be.
But it takes it was really just this one paragraph. It stems from this tiny detail in this chapter that it was something that I read that almost immediately my brain took this paragraph and just ran with it.
Those are the most fun to me, because when I saw you had put it down, this is one of my notes that I made when I went through the chapter, is the phrase itself. I was like, oh, that's a neat way to word it. Like, I like this. So it definitely stuck out to me as well.
Yeah. So, like my brain just started to piece together all of the bits of the puzzle and built this story in my head that was not within the confines of that paragraph. But it's just like, now it's there. It's part of the story, at least.
That's fan fiction, sir.
Right. Well, it's just like me, like it's my experience with this book, and I love it. So, toward the end of this chapter, when Zach is looking over Menzo Berenzon, as he so often did, quote, it's actually in the book, Zach reflects back on the fights that Malice and Zach had as Vierna was growing up. Zach saw something in Vierna very similar to how he saw something in Drizzt. She was obviously not a normal Drow.
Yeah.
And so just like Zach, that is, and he struggled to deal with the fact that Vierna was going to be brainwashed into the Spider Queen's overwhelming religion.
It's interesting too, because I think that's the first part they explicitly mention, that Vierna is Zach Nefane's child. That they know that Vierna is Zach Nefane's. Because earlier I thought they speculated, right? Because they share, her and Drizzt share similar innocence or similar qualities, and Zach had wondered. But I think right here is where you find out for certain that Vierna is his daughter. And I did like that because it does speak a lot about the hopelessness he felt watching her kind of wash away, and why he would try even so much harder with Drizzt, as like he saw his second chance of a reclamation project. Yeah,
and you're totally stepping on my toes here, Jeffrey.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. What do you say?
Because that's totally where I'm going with this. Just like reading this brought so much of Zach's personality and choices that he has made to light. And my brain just started creating a bunch of these memories that Zach would have while Vierna was growing up. So when Vierna was young, Zach wanted to protect her from this brutal culture. He saw a child very similar to Drizzt, and he wanted to make sure that she stayed naive, that she kept these values that he at least thought was moral, but maybe the culture itself didn't see as moral. So he fought to protect her from the evil and the horror of this society. But when the day came, like when it came down to it, she was a female, and female Drow go on to be clerics of Lolth, or high priestesses of Lolth. And when she came back, his little girl was gone. And Zach was stuck knowing that he could have killed Vierna when she was little to spare her the pain of suffering and serving such an evil deity.
I didn't even think about that. Do you think he would have pondered killing her as well, the same way he ponders killing Drizzt? Because they wouldn't have done the sparring sessions and stuff, right? Like,
right, exactly. Well, and so like my brain didn't go that direction, didn't think that necessarily would have happened. Maybe it would have. But I mean, now he lived through all that.
Right. So now he's looking at it with the experience of like, oh, I missed that opportunity. Like,
right. And so now he has Drizzt, and it's just kind of like, well, I mean, yeah. So cut to this time with Drizzt and Zach. Zach was constantly feeling the same fear with Drizzt, losing his naiveness.
I struggle so hard with how to say that word multiple
times. I should look it up.
Naivety.
Naivety. So probably every day, I would imagine that like every day of their training together, Zach would have thought about dispatching Drizzt as a mercy killing. Because like, again, thinking about Vierna.
You just, midday practice, gonna go get myself one of the Sunny D's out of the fridge, come back, stab Drizzt in the kidney, call it a day.
Well, I mean, but like, think about it. Like, he saw his little girl just like go through all this, and all of a sudden, not his little girl anymore. Now she's a priestess of Lolth.
Yeah, and he has every reason to believe that the cycle will repeat itself.
Right. So, and yeah, so I can only imagine that like every day there was a part of the day, or at least a lot of days, where Zach is looking at Drizzt just like, should I just do this and be done with it? But
wake up, I don't know. Have my eggs. Yeah. Should I kill the kid? Nah, have coffee. Go up, do lunch. Should I kill the... Nah, you know what? Go.
Coffee. Interesting. Do you think Drow have coffee? So it wasn't until Zach learned that Drizzt was going to the academy that Zach got pretty serious about the idea of killing Drizzt.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like he can see him on a conveyor belt just like going out of his grasp, like, it's going to be out of my reach then.
Right. Well, there was that whole encounter between the two where it just seemed like Zach was coming at Drizzt a little too, hard. But, I mean, but Drizzt survived that, so it was like, well, is it too late? Like, is Drizzt too skilled? Like, is Zach not able to defeat Drizzt?
It's amazing to see him have that quandary, because it's exactly the same question posed by Massage. When he watches Drizzt tearing through the water trolls, he's like, look, I could kill him now. How soon is it before I don't even stand a chance? And then it hits him where he's like, can I kill him now?
Right.
Like, he's got that doubt.
That is interesting.
It's like, and then there's Zach, who is not a coward. Not in any way whatsoever having any of the other tendencies that Massage has, but he's echoing the thought, like, man, even if I wanted to, could I kill Drizzt?
Am I able to?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So now that Drizzt is back from the academy, he's even more skilled. He has 10 years more experience. Just who knows how Drizzt and Zach would compare now. Could Zach kill Drizzt even if he wanted to? Like, we don't know. But thinking about back when Zach kept having these thoughts of killing Drizzt, I couldn't help but think that Zach was being a little dramatic. Which, I mean, he is a little dramatic. He's a little melancholy. He's
an emotional boy.
But considering this most recent chapter, this whole idea of he had a daughter, he lost the daughter, And now he knows that his daughter is succumbing to just the vileness of this evil religion. It just brings all of that into a lot more dim light, like it's back when I was reading it, it didn't make much sense to me. I was just like, okay, Drow are ridiculous. Like, why are you killing so many people? This doesn't make any sense.
You're right. You just kind of write it off. Drow doing what Drow do. I get it, right? I mean, Drow gonna be Drow.
But, I don't know. Just the idea of that one paragraph talking about Vierna, just like ignited all these thoughts in my mind. I'm just like, oh, but I mean, Zach sort of makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
And those actions and those thoughts that he had before, they make a lot more sense.
That's what's cool too, right? Because I mean, like, up to this point, R.A. Salvatore spends all this time just verbally describing the statuesque individual, and then, in a matter of a chapter or two, cracks him open to let you see the complexity of the artwork inside of this Drow who stands before you. You know what I mean? Like, it's really amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jeffrey, we are really running overtime here.
So let's crack it down. Let's put the hats on.
We still have a dungeon.
Let's delve.
We still have a dungeon to delve through. Let's get to it.
The dungeon delve. That's the part of the show where we're going to link this chapter with our favorite tabletop role-playing game. So for me, they didn't have the largest part of the chapter. But when they said water trolls, my ears immediately perked up a little bit. So I decided to make them part of my dungeon delve. Mm-hmm. Water trolls are also called scrags, marine trolls, aquatic trolls, and sea trolls. A lot of names for them, but they boil down to basically two kinds. It's freshwater and saltwater trolls.
Interesting.
So they're found in a large body of water, and this is because they can need considerable room to hunt. Their coloration can run anywhere from like blue-green to olive, and their forelimbs are shorter and weaker than ordinary trolls. Like, sort of like a troll version of a T-Rex, right? For the video, I've got the little arms going.
Nice.
Probably not as scary, but that's easy for me to say because I've never had to face either one of them. The freshwater troll is smaller than a normal troll, and it has scales, heavy scales. These scales give it a natural armor, no chainmail required. It does have an enlarged lower jaw, though, that bears these mean, small, sharp fangs. Now, a saltwater scrag is going to be about as large as an ordinary troll, and they have a thick and heavily scaled skin, but some of them are intelligent enough to use shells and shark skin as armor.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of horrifying.
I feel like shark skin isn't that tough, though.
No, but you're adding it to somebody who already has scales, so it's just like it's
true.
armor on armor, like 2-ply.
Yeah.
So the saltwater troll has the shorter forelimbs, just like the freshwater troll does, in comparison to an ordinary troll. But they have a huge maw in comparison. Their jaw just much larger, and they have numerous fangs. And the interesting fact is that saltwater trolls can breathe in freshwater, saltwater, or brackish water, which, for those of you who don't know, is a combination of both. They can do this with suffering no ill effects. So there's so many different types of trolls, it's really a bit mind-numbing. But do you want a quick list read?
Absolutely.
All right, ready? Here we go. Blood trolls, cave trolls, black trolls, crystalline trolls, deep sea trolls, desert trolls, dire trolls, fell trolls, and fire trolls. But wait, there's more. Forest trolls, gray trolls, ice trolls, mountain trolls, and Murzaguls. Those are plane-touched creatures descended from the mingling of trolls and demons. Yeah.
Interesting.
That happened. Base trolls, pseudo trolls, rock trolls, and rot trolls. Scrags, which are what we are focusing on in this one. Then you have slime trolls and spirit trolls, stone trolls, tree trolls, troll hunters. They train to hunt civilized beings for food. Two-headed trolls, venom trolls, war trolls, and wasteland trolls. These are a list of my favorite trolls. It'd be really good if I could have made a song about that and pasted it out right, but that's the best you're going to get from me. So freshwater trolls, to summarize it up, they have an armor class of 16. Natural armor that we mentioned with the scales. Their hit points are 9d8 or 9d10. plus 45. So this gives them a minimum of 54 hit points and a maximum of 135 hit points.
Shoo.
They get a speed of 30 feet and they swim at a speed of 40 feet. So they get their swimming on. They do get a skill bonus of plus 2 for perception and plus 8 for athletics. Plus 8.
That's crazy.
Their passive perception is 12, and they have dark vision for 60 feet. They speak Aquan and Giant. Fun part, when we look at monsters, they're considered a 7 as a challenge, and they're worth 2,900 experience points. They have keen smell, advantage of wisdom checks that rely on smell. They're considered amphibious, so they can breathe air and water. And when it comes to actions, the freshwater scrag has multi-attack. So it's going to make not 1, not 2, but 3 attacks.
Shoo.
Here's where it gets fun. 1 bite, 2 claw attacks. A bite is a melee attack. It gets that plus 8 to hit that we mentioned. It's got a 5-foot reach, and on a hit, you will take 1d10 plus 5 piercing damage.
That's not so bad.
And you are grappled.
Ouch.
Escape DC of 16. But on the bright side, Scrag can't bite anybody else until the grapple with you ends, because you're stuck in his mouth.
You're stuck in its jaws.
Yep. So the claw, and we're going to get to grappled in just a moment, but the claw is a melee weapon attack. So it also gets a plus 8 to hit. Remember that as we go forward, plus 8 to hit and a reach of 5 feet. So on a hit, you will take 2d6 plus 5 slashing damage per claw. I think
right, because he does that twice.
Yep. And I think it's interesting real quick to look at the range of damage, right? Because breaking it down, with the 3 attacks, the freshwater troll hits you, and then you're looking at a minimum, assuming that all 3 attacks hit. If he gets you with all 3, you have a minimum damage of 20 hit points. Maximum damage of 49 hit points on your first roll, or first round. That's quite a round of damage. However, it does get worse when you consider that Justin earlier mentioned what happens when it bites you, and then you're grappled. As somebody
stuck in its jaws.
As somebody who's played a creature who loves to grapple, this gets fun. What does grappled mean? It means that you lose your movement speed. However, that is hardly the worst of it. The next move, as a seasoned grapple player, the next move is to knock your opponent prone with a shove. This is just an attack. It is not your attack action to do a shove. So you can try shoving more than once.
Right.
So you try to shove and move him, and this is going to be strength on strength check. If he wins, nothing happens. If you win, you get to shove them. So if you are grappled and prone, or if they can succeed in shoving you, you are knocked prone. Grappled and prone. So if you are grappled and prone, prepare for pain because your attacks are now at a disadvantage. And the attacker attacks with advantage.
With advantage.
So twice per turn, with an advantage on both, that Scrag will attack with his melee claws. You can't move, so no standing up to end the prone, no dodge action, no withdrawal. And the Scrag that does the grappling, it actually has half of its movement speed. So a fun trick is to drag a grappled creature and drop him off a cliff. Maybe throw him in a fire. But if you're a water-breathing Scrag, then maybe that Scrag puts you in his mouth and drags you back into the water.
Oh, man.
And it's not gonna take too long, unless you can breathe underwater, to get dragged down into a watery grave by that Scrag. So you can see kind of why, when Drizzt is fighting these things one-on-one or one-on-two, it is not how you would normally approach him. That is a vicious animal to attack you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I know I've gone on for a bit, but I wanted to set the stage properly because what makes trolls in general so darn hard to fight against is the fact that they have a regenerative ability.
That's insane.
Yep, and they were named in the top 10 list of creatures to fight your party with. So for DMs to use in campaigns.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was number 2 or number 6, but it's top 10.
Wow.
Because it's the first creature you're going to come across most often as far as the levels build that'll have its regenerative ability that a group has to fight. Most creatures that they'll fight until they meet a troll usually won't have regenerative ability. So now they meet a troll and it's like, ooh, you know what? If you don't have fire, Good luck.
Right.
So while at least partially submerged in fresh water, they can't be on dry land. It has to be partially in the water. The Scrag regains 10 hit points at the start of each turn. 10.
Jeez.
The only thing that stops this is acid or fire damage, and a Scrag will only die if it starts the next turn with 0 hit points and no ability to regenerate.
So it has to be like out of water or on fire or in acidic water.
So, well, being in the Underdark and near water, you better hope that you have fire handy and it's gonna stay lit.
Ooh,
Or that somebody's doing a whole lot of acid damage, because these creatures do not seem like an easy fight.
No, they do not. Not with Regenerate.
And for those of you who haven't joined in our Dim Light Squad, come on in to the Discord creature feature. We added the water troll. Come on, learn more about him in there.
No, absolutely. And in fact, I might have another creature feature here.
Ooh.
For my Dungeon Delve. I mean, I've been saving this one for a while. And I mean, you might be thinking like, well, what other creature did we read about this chapter? And yeah, I've been saving this one for a while. Every time that I wanted to talk about this, there was something that came up that was better.
Is it Massage's jealous green beast of envy?
It is. It is not Massage. It is not his green beast of envy, but it is matron mothers, Drow matron mothers. For Christmas last year, I received Mordekainen's Tome of Foes, the book.
Okay.
I have it here, but of course it's going to be blurry. Yep, it's nice and blurry, but there it is. And so I got this for Christmas, and I really have not delved into it enough. And
is that where you got the creature that almost killed us on Friday?
It is.
Excellent.
So in preparing for this podcast, I was looking through at some of the monsters, and I was just like, hey, our team would have could totally run into a frost salamander. And so I threw a frost salamander at him, and man, you guys were going to die.
Correction. They were going to die, and I was going to have to figure out whether or not I was going to run away, because somehow I managed to be the only one who did not get in the strike path of that giant beastie.
Yeah, and that was even with like a little bit of a hint, like just like, you all are getting the feeling that you should not be standing next to each other. And everyone's just like, spread out!
As a ranged caster, that's my first move. You gotta move. You gotta move. Luckily, it's one of those things where initiative saves your backside. Because if I was a lower initiative, I wouldn't have been able to move at all.
You'd have been right in the line of fire.
Yep. And that beastie did a solid 40 damage.
40 damage.
And just for reference, my character is strolling around with a felt 52 max HP. So I would have been, well, not crippled, but just laid to waste.
But frost salamanders are not what I'm talking about now. Feel free to take a look at them. They're really cool, but definitely a deadly encounter for my group.
But we escaped.
But yeah, you guys, I say deadly in that it would have killed people, but you guys ran away, which was very smart. But this Mordekainen's Tome of Foes is something I got for Christmas. It covers a number of different things. It has different lore concerning elves, dwarves. It actually includes 2 more races. It includes playable races, I should say, Gith and gnomes, which I never heard of Gith before. I didn't take the time to read too much about them, but it has another playable race in there, and it has a bunch more monsters. But the reason why I'm bringing up that book is because in that book there are a bunch more stat blocks specifically for Drow to use in your campaign. And the one stat block that I really want to focus on here is the Drow Matron Mother. I've been wanting to talk about this since like day 1 of the podcast because of Matron Malice. And I want to talk about how powerful theoretically she could actually be, because I mean, this is 5e. The book was written back in what, 88, 89, somewhere around there. So definitely a different edition of D&D back then. But now in 5e, Matron Mothers boast a cool 17 armor class, an average of just over 250 HP. They are immune to being charmed, frightened, and poisoned. Being Drow, they have Fey ancestry, and I'm abbreviating this because there's a lot of cool things about this, but I mean the stat block itself takes up 3/4 of the page.
Oh wow!
Like 3/4 of the page, and so I can't cover everything, but yeah. So they're immune to being charmed, frightened, poisoned. Being a Drow, they have Fey ancestry, so then that means that they meditate instead of sleeping. And they have innate spell casting, which allows them to cast the typical Drow spells like darkness, detect thoughts, levitate, blah, blah, blah. They have an ability called Lulth's Fickle Favor, which I thought was interesting. This is something that they cast as a bonus action. They cast it on an ally, and on that ally, it deals 2d6 psychic damage. Why would you do that?
Because you're mean.
Well, it gives advantage on the attacks that character would then make for one turn. So if you have like a fighter that can make 2 or even 3 attacks, that would give advantage on all of those attacks. As far as spell casting,
but if you
concerned,
had 120 health points, it could do a 10% damage clip.
Yeah,
for advantage.
That's true.
I mean, maybe the person could just play their character better and get inspiration, right? I mean, be true to their character and don't take psychic Lulth damage. Goodness.
Matrons are spellcasters. So as far as spellcasting is concerned, they know a lot of spells. The highest ones I'll talk about here just briefly. They know Divine Word and Plane Shift, which are level 7 spells. They know Holy Aura at level 8, and they know Gate at level 9. So I never had anyone cast Gate before. I never cast Gate before in game.
Like on a fence? Just like a little open close gate?
Right. Well, I mean, in a way, just not on a fence, but...
No?
So Gate is basically... I mean, it opens a portal to a specific location. Like, you're basically, like, not limited as far as where you want to cast this portal, where you want to connect to. They can say, like, oh, well, I want to cast to this layer of the 9 hells or whatever, you know, and invite whatever creatures are around into the portal.
No.
So it just, I mean, whatever's on the other side, just like, yeah, like, hello, yuchlals, you know?
We've been trying to reach you about your extended car warranty.
So they do have sunlight sensitivity because, you know, being Drow. And then their actions. The actions that they have... they have a demon staff that they can use as a melee weapon,
like
dealing and it doesn't deal a terrible amount of damage. It only does 1d6 plus 4 bludgeoning damage. That's it. It's not a lot, but it does do a decent amount of psychic damage on top of that. 4d6.
Ouch! That's like a concussion shot. Like tap. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. So upon being hit, and that's not even all of it. Like, upon being hit, they also need to make a wisdom saving throw. And I forget what the DC is. I want to say it's like 20. Like, it's crazy high. If they fail, you're frightened. Which means you need to get away from that target by whatever means necessary.
That makes so much sense in a matriarchal society run by Drow priestesses and Drow matron mothers, that the matron mother would have the ability to tap you, hurt you, deal psychic damage, and make you afraid. Like, you were just cowed in her presence. Like, right. That makes so much sense.
Okay, so that's one action.
That's one.
Is able.
There's more.
That's one. There's more types of actions here. They also have what is called a tentacle rod.
Not nice.
Which I imagine is probably like their whips that they're using.
Right.
But in 5e, they interpret it as a rod. So it does have a reach of 15 feet, which is pretty unique. I don't know that I've ever seen another item that had a reach of 15 feet, other than like a melee weapon.
Go gadget smack.
Again, the weapon itself doesn't deal that much damage. It only does 1d6 bludgeoning damage. But then you also have a con saving throw that you need to make. If you fail, then your speed is halved, and you also have disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. Just crazy. And then another action, so that's 2 actions that they're able to make. The third one is Summon Servant, which is pretty much what it sounds like. Once a day, you're able to summon either a Yachlal or a Retriever. And I'm like, ooh, a dog.
Like, hey, puppy, fetch.
Summoner.
Nice time for Zach to sit down and reflect over the the Narbondale rise in Menzo Berenzin as he pets the dog.
No, if you don't know what a Retriever is, it's also in this book. It is basically a giant mechanical spider from the abyss.
It is unnecessarily horrifying.
It's terrifying.
So, basically the thing out of Wild Wild West with Will Smith will crawl on up, grab something. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah. So those are the 3 actions that they can make. But of course, Jeffrey, they have multi-attack.
I'm not sure. I think multi-attack's OP. I think we should petition Wizards of the Coast.
Oh, just wait. We're not even done.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So they can attack twice with their demon staff or 3 times with their tentacle rod.
Would your speed be halved every time?
I don't think so.
Okay, so you would just.
I don't think that effect would stack. I feel like they would have to attack 3 different people to get that same effect.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep. So instead, it hits you with the Boo Wand from Zelda with the demon staff. Boom. And then 2 of those rock you with psychic damage, and now you're left questioning whether or not you're scared because you got to make a save or run away. Like, wow.
So the last thing
and they
that
have
the matron mothers
hit
have.
Points.
Crazy hit points and a decently high AC as well. The last thing that I wanted to bring up is that they have something called legendary actions, which is something that is, I think it's specific to 5e. I don't think there were legendary actions in other versions. So basically, some bosses are able to have these legendary actions, and these are used at the end of the creature's turn. But they only get so many in a day. So matron mothers have 3 legendary action, we'll call them slots. They're almost like spell slots. You get 3 of them.
Yikes.
And they have 3 possible legendary actions that they can make. So 1, they can use their demon staff. So already they have multi-attack. They can use their demon staff twice. But then they can use their legendary action to use it a 3rd time in the same turn.
Yeah.
Crazy. They can use a legendary action to compel demon, which makes a demon that is there, which, I mean, they could have summoned from Gate or you'll see something. Oh, shoot. No, did I leave that out? There was a way for them to summon monsters. Ah, shoot.
You had it earlier, right? Demons. With the Gate.
Well, no, there was something else that they were able to do, too. I must have left that out by accident. Oh, well. Anyway, they can compel demon, which makes a specific demon, a target demon, use its reaction to attack a creature. So a reaction, I don't know that we talked about reactions. It's like sort of like an opportunity attack when you move out of range, out of attack range of an enemy. They have the opportunity to use their reaction to attack you. Well, compel demon makes it so that you don't have to move outside of their range for them to attack you. You can just say like, hey, use your reaction, attack them. And they do. And, you know, depending on the demon, that could be really bad. Or the matron can use their legendary actions to cast either level 1, 2, or 3 spells. consuming a legendary slot per spell level. So if you cast a level 3 spell as a legendary action, it's using up all 3 legendary actions. So if anyone out there, looking at all this stuff, matron mothers are no joke. They are a serious boss. I think they were, oh shoot, I forgot to keep track of it. You said what the challenge rating was of the troll. The challenge rating for a matron mother was crazy. I want to say it was like, was it 20? Shoot. I wish I kept the page here. Darn it. Oh well. We'll put her in the creature feature, and we'll include that in there. So yeah, I can't find her right now. So if anyone out there is planning a Drow campaign, looking at you, Jeffrey.
Me? Why are you looking at me?
A Drow campaign with any people, final boss. Could you imagine? I feel like a matron mother could take on, could take on
how does the
level
challenge
5 or
system
level...
work? Because you've DM'd it, and I'm still kind of new. When you see it at level 7, like earlier we have a troll.
So I more look at the XP.
Okay.
Because I think it's the Dungeon Master guide, there's a calculator table where it's like, if you it tells you how to figure out like a difficult encounter versus an easy encounter would be within a certain XP for certain leveled groups.
Okay.
So like if you have 5 level 1 characters, this much XP would be an easy encounter, this much would be a deadly encounter.
I got you.
And then you would, and there's also like multiple, it's pretty complicated because if there's also multipliers for if you have multiple bad creatures, like multiple monsters that you're fighting. Like if it's just one monster, it's a lot more simple, but once you have multiple monsters, it's like, oh, if you have 5, multiply all of their XPs by 1.5.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Because for her, I know like when they list the matron mother as a stat block, looking at like level 20 as her challenge, but the EXP or the XP, whatever you want to call it, is 25,000.
Yeah.
Like that just seems like a ton.
You looked her up?
I did use a professional pause while we were going through this to make sure that I rifled through it real quick to snag it. Yeah. She has 18 as her AC. It's considered half plate.
Oh, 18? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's without any add-ons or anything else, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just straight AC is 18. That's not bad when you have 250 plus health points. Like, ugh.
Yeah. Crazy. Oh, here I found it. Yeah, it still says 17. Half plate, whatever that means. I don't know. But yeah, 25,000 XP. Yeah, I guess. So anyway, it would be crazy to see one of them. Because you would imagine a matron mother would not be by herself. She would have her armies at her side.
Bro, I would use a full action to pull my hood down. And then on my next turn, I would just send my whip out and snatch the tongue right out of her mouth without even looking.
Oh, easy.
That's
Simple.
the way to do it. It's been laid out.
Zach's been doing it for years.
It's like speed running Mario at this point. It's not about beating the game. It's about how quickly can you get through it without even looking.
Right. All right. Well, we have gone long enough here, Jeffrey. We better call it quits. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all for listening. Remember that if you like the show, give us a 5-star rating. Make sure you're getting the most out of this podcast as well. Pick up a copy of the book and read along. Or hey, if you think you don't have time to read, try listening to the audiobook.
With your ears.
With your ears. Try listening during your commute, at work, at the gym, wherever you are. When you've read this chapter or the next chapter, shoot us an email. Let us know what your favorite part is, and we'll give you a mensch. Or even better, you could log on to our Discord, join the discussion. Remember, we would love to hear from you.
Absolutely love to hear from you guys. Well, time is drawing short, So it's time to remind you all that in the episode description there is a link. It says support the show, and I bet some of you are wondering what that means, right? There's many ways to help the show. You can leave us reviews, you can smash the like button so hard that you need a new button. You can tell your friends, you can tell your family, you could take out a banner-sized ad in your local newspaper and let your whole community know. That's not what the button is for, though. The button that says support the show, that's for those of you who want to step up, be fancy about it, drop a couple of dollars like Saltberry when he's got his arm up, dropping salt on the steak. All those donations go to the show, and unlike most large charities that you might worry about, me and Justin are not reporting onto board members. We're not going to have to embezzle any of the money. We're simply going to use it to buy new toys for the show. Microphones, sound equipment, green screens, fun stuff like that. We've been talking about growing and about how to engage the audience further and continue to make this show just a little bit bigger of a playground for everybody to enjoy. And one of the things that we wanted to do, like I mentioned earlier, is hold a D&D campaign based on the Grand Melee Mag Theater. We don't need donations to do this, but your donations are going to work to increase the speed at which these changes happen. So until we meet again, the next time that you decide to press play on the episode link, farewell. Always try to play fair, and I hope you stay well.